Christine Keeler and Mandy Rice-Davies, or, putting it another way, Mandy Rice-Davies and Christine Keeler. As Mandy herself reflected, Christine Keeler and I were as inseparable as Cross and Blackwell, perhaps you could say Laurel and Hardy. We go back to 1963, the Profumo affair, the scandal, in which a number of people were embedded in all sorts of hanky-panky going on, which involved various establishment figures. And what's interesting about the case to me is that the true story, in other words, the facts, the real facts, are not going to be released until 2046. So that suggests that there's an awful lot we don't know. Getting back to Mandy Rice-Davies and Christine Keeler, these were the two girls involved with Stephen Ward. Supposedly he was their pimp. They hotly deny this. Mandy Rice-Davies and Christine Keeler were what we would call probably today good time girls, or we probably wouldn't even call them good time girls today. They were probably just girls or young women out for a good time and sexually liberated. But in 1963, which was just before the pill became widely available, they were seen, well, in the News of the World's description, as sluts without shame or scruple. Now, I don't think it's just women that are sluts, but in our culture still, sluts are usually female, aren't they? And so are harlots and tramps and strumpets and trollops and baggages and fluses and moles and hussies and loose women. And these two young women, Mandy was I think 18 at the time, were branded. But Mandy, being what we would call ambitious, which is not a word they used about women in those days, but they did use it about Mandy Rice-Davies. She was ambitious. She wasn't going to be a victim of anyone. And famously, when cross-examined by Lord Astor's QC as to whether her report of their sexual intercourse was true or not, and the QC said, well, Lord Astor's denied it, and she said very pertly, well, he would, wouldn't he? Which was a two fingers up to the establishment, which was very rare in those days, because normally people doff their caps and tug their forelocks whenever anybody posh came into sight. Talking of posh, my mother much preferred Mandy Rice-Davies over Christine Keeler. Why? Because she was a bit classy. Classy? Yes. You see, she had a hyphenated name, and she didn't spell Davis, she spelt it Davies. So in my mother's eyes, she was a cut above common old Christine Keeler. What did Mandy do? She did very little, actually. She was really on the periphery of this scandal, but she made the most of it. Photo opportunities, she was going to star in the film version of Fanny Hill, and she made a record, which is called Introducing Mandy. It came out in February 1964 on the Ember label. Orchestra directed by Arthur Greenslade. Arthur who? Arthur Greenslade. A few months later, he was in the recording studio with Shirley Bassey, and together, John Barry's music, they recorded a little song called Goldfinger. And a number of years later, Greenslade again orchestrated for Shirley Bassey her classic version of Send in the Clown. So Mandy could have been quite a famous singer of the early 60s, along perhaps, not so much with Dusty, but possibly with Cilla, possibly with Sandy, and definitely with Marianne Faithfull. Because really, Mandy's voice was just as good as Marianne Faithfull's at that time. So this record, I regard this record as Mandy's testament. And the song I particularly like, and you can hear it, I hope, at the end of this recording, is her version, cover version, of You've Got What It Takes, which was sung by Marv Johnson in 1960, and it was in Australia's top 10 for 16 weeks. It was, I think, number 7 in the UK charts, and it was pretty high in the American charts as well. And here's Mandy doing a cover version of a black male song. And listen to it carefully. She does a good job, actually, Mandy, on this song. It's very ballsy. Arthur Greenslade's arrangement is way over the top. It's partly awful and it's partly awesome. Because Mandy did have something, and she went on to have even more. Not a career as an actress in Fanny Hill, not a career as a pop star, but she went to Europe as a cabaret entertainer. She met an airline steward, an Israeli airline steward. She had quite a business career in Israel, and she met a French count. She became a disco queen, and then she ended up marrying a British businessman and living in Kensington and Virginia Water, friends of Dennis and Margaret Thatcher. And in her obituary, she had a very, very nice tribute from Lord Lloyd Webber, who thought she was intelligent and, yes, classy. Sassy and classy. Mandy, I remember you so well, because in those days, far off 1963, gay people had no role models at all. Now, Mandy was not perhaps the best role model that gay people could have, but she was the nearest we had to it. Why? Because she was a gay lady. Remember, gay was a euphemism for prostitute, male and female. We didn't have the word gay then, but she was a gay lady. She was, of course, very minxish, and she didn't care what she said. And those two fingers up to the establishment, which were embodied in those famous words, well, he would, wouldn't he? We, I think, cheered her and thought, yes, she was one of us. And she remained one of us to the end. Brazen, out there, classy and sassy. Mandy, we love you. And yes, you have got what it takes.
You don't drive a big fast car. You don't look like a movie star. And on your money we won't get far. But baby, you got what it takes to satisfy. You got what it takes to set my soul on fire. Whoa, and oh yeah, you got what it takes for me. Now you don't live in a beautiful place. You don't dress in the best of taste. And nature didn't give you such a beautiful